Hello, Abnormal Investigations. How's everybody doing? Man, it has been a cold, cold week here in northeast Oklahoma. If there's any cryptids out there, they are not happy. It is 16 degrees outside right now with a north wind of 12 miles an hour, which makes it feel like -3. Yeah, it's been pretty cold. Alright guys, we've got a encounter for you guys. I think you're going to enjoy this one. Thank you for watching. Smashing the like button if you don't mind. Smash it right now so you don't forget. It means so much. And also, if you don't mind, tell your friends about us. Share us out on your Facebook. It helps so much. My family owns a small farm in Minnesota where we raise cattle, chickens, and sheep. And we grow corn, soybeans, and oats. Although I don't permanently live on the farm, my grandma, aunt, and uncle do, along with my cousins. Oftentimes I visit them in the summer and stay on the farm for a while. This was one of those summers. The farm is on the edge of civilization and is only connected to other people by crude roads and trails. Next to the farm are acres of wild, untouched woodland. As a kid, my cousins and I would play at the tree line, but never go further than that. We'd often see wild animals such as foxes and deer, raccoons, and even black bears occasionally. But I'd say the most elusive animal in those woods were the wolves. I had only seen them twice. The way they moved was hauntingly beautiful, almost like phantoms, I said. They never got too close to the farm, as we all had several guard dogs. The wolf packs in the woods weren't too big either. When I went over this summer, my grandma was really strict about going into the woods, which was immediately strange to me. What else caught my attention was that my uncle had 2 new guns. I'm not a weapons guy, but they seemed to be some sort of rifle. I never really questioned them, but anything new at the home I would always recognize. I awoke to a low, almost groaning sound next to my window, and scratching. I assumed it was one of our dogs. But whatever it was pacing back and forth, and its footsteps seemed to be heavy and deliberate. After around 15 minutes of this, the footsteps stopped and slowly faded into the direction of the woods. A few days after that, I was helping my uncle with the livestock when we both noticed that these tracks at the end of the fence. They looked like wolf tracks, not those weird monstrous tracks you might have heard of in other stories. These were normal wolf tracks. This put pretty much everyone on edge because, as I said before, the wolves wouldn't venture too close to the farm, and from the looks of it, there were several sets of tracks. Later on, our dogs would stare at the woods almost constantly and bark at them. They also wouldn't venture near them. Around a month into all this, I was awake at night time. For some reason, I couldn't sleep, and while I went to get myself a glass of water, I heard a loud crash outside. It was right outside the farm's kitchen. It was positioned right next to the chicken coop, and I heard flapping of the wings. I also remember hearing the dogs barking madly. I remember waking my uncle and cousin and rushing outside with them, but we only found the aftermath. Feathers were all over the place, and around the coop was torn down like it was made of plastic. The fence was shredded. 2 of the chickens were missing, and the others were huddled in the corner. Our dogs were barking madly at the woods, rushing and stopping just shy of the trees. I wish that were the end of it. After that, things sort of calmed down. The only weird thing I remember was the eerie wolf howls that seemed to echo into the night. I thought it was just the wolves were growing bolder and more confident, but my family seemed to be more on edge, which was strange for them. Then it all came to a climax one night. My uncle, cousin, and I were awake at night again, talking and laughing. We were in the middle of the living room, just catching up. Then we heard our dogs barking loudly outside. I remember seeing my uncle grab his gun and rush outside, and my cousin and I followed suit. We rushed to the sheep, and what we saw will be engraved in my mind forever. Our dogs were standing 10 feet from it, barking and giving mock charges. The sheep had all scattered, and the ones lying dead on the ground. a bloody bite mark on its neck. Hunched over it was a figure which I can only describe as a half human and half beast. It had the long snout and pointed ears of a wolf, but it had a human intelligence in its eyes. It had a lean build with a visible abs similar to a human, and its hands were being used like a primate's to hold down the sheep. Its body was covered in thick hair. It looked at us, and we looked at it, but it also noticed that standing at the tree line were 3 wolves, their eyes shining as they stared at us. That's when it hit me that this thing crunched in front of us was a part of the wolf pack. We just stared at each other until my uncle lifted his gun and fired. The creature ducked, my uncle just missing. It ran off into the woods on all fours, with a speed unmatched by any living creature. The wolves quickly ran after it. My uncle told me and my cousins to get inside, and we listened. My parents took me back home the following week. I think about the creature a lot, its gray fur and the shining eyes. I've held on to this story for a while, unsure whether to tell it or not, but I decided it was time to share it with you, Mike. I don't know whether what I saw was a werewolf or something else. All I know is that us humans should be more careful out there in this wilderness. We believe we have displaced ourselves from the food chain, but if that was the thing you wanted to, it could have shredded us all that night. You know, it's interesting how you say gray. I was riding in the back of my truck one day when my mom and dad were driving to take me fishing. I was about probably 15, 16 years old. It was my first truck. It was a 1979 baby blue Ford pickup truck, F-150. My dad was driving, my mom was up front, and I was in the back. I was just looking around, kind of looking through the trees, enjoying the summer day. The trees kind of hang over the road where we went, and it was shaded, and just a nice, cool evening ride, knowing we were going fishing. You know, I was so happy to go fishing with my family. Love spending family time. And as we were driving, I noticed that I was looking off. We had just passed a bridge, and I was looking off into the woods, and that's when I saw it. I don't know how to explain it. It was tall, and it was pretty big. I mean, it was bulky, bigger than a human or anything. It was probably 7, 8 foot tall. But the color that I described, what I seen running that ran up this huge hill, it wasn't like a gray like you would think. It looked more like, I always compared it to my dad's cigarette ashes. Gray with the black. It's kind of like it was gray and black in it, like ashes, like ash color. And it ran up over the hill. It was running in the direction of the other place that we were headed to fish. When we got to the other place to fish, while we were sitting there, something weird happened. I threw my pole out. My pole started jerking, probably from, there was a current, so anyways, I reeled it in, and when I reeled it in, it was a skint catfish that was on my hook. It was caught in the mouth, and we all thought that was kind of weird anyways, but the current and everything, you know, it could have hooked onto the hook with it coming down the creek. But that's whenever whatever I had seen, I had told my mom and them about it, and of course, you know, I think they were kind of questioning if I saw what I said I saw, and at that time, whatever it was, it dove off of the creek bank down into the water, and we all watched it swim across the creek and crawl out on the other side. I remember my dad grabbing all of our stuff and throwing it in the back of the truck, and they didn't let me ride in the back of the truck on the way out of there. And we left immediately. We knew what we seen wasn't human. Of course, back then, a lot of people didn't call a lot of things werewolves or dogman. We never even heard of dogman. It was either a werewolf is what we'd heard of, but people didn't call these things really werewolves down there. Every time somebody would see something like that, it was a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch. But looking back on it, whatever this thing was, I know that it had an elongated snout, you know. But we left, and this is one of the places that I do like to investigate, but it's hard to investigate because a lot of people have found that area, and of course you all know I've been stalked down there, so it's hard to tell if it's human or animal, and that makes it dangerous for me and for them because, you know, it would be stupid to come up on somebody at night and try to do something whenever people are armed in the woods. So Anyways, guys, I just wanted to share that little encounter with you. He was talking about also it running off on four legs. I thought that was really caught my attention. Another thing he said was it running with the wolves, and it makes you wonder, how many of these things do run with other things, to hide. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what y'all think. Thanks for listening, guys. I appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something's dinner. And we'll see you on the next one.